Hello lovelies, today we have pumpkin in our creative veggie workshop series, and pumpkin is just amazing. It's another one of those delicious comfort vegetables that is just so versatile, and you can use it for sweet and savoury. Well, actually, come to think of it, I've managed to get quite a few vegetables to go sweet. Like the last week we had a chocolate eggplant tart. And I can also hide all sorts of things into meals. Anyway, I digress. What I'm going to start with today is just a roasted vegetable medley. This is just so easy. One of the things I get my clients to do is whenever they're doing roasted vegetables, always do a second tray. And it doesn't matter what those vegetables are. I've got pumpkin, zucchini, onion, capsicum, but you also could have thrown in eggplant, mushrooms, whatever you've got, roast another tray. And then you can whip up this. And once again, any green will do. I've chosen rocket, but you also could do baby spinach. And then we want some kind of grain, and today I have chosen brown rice, but this could also be quinoa. Now remember, one of the things I have been talking about recently is if you cook the brown rice the day before and then pop it in the fridge, it becomes a resistant starch, which means that the carbohydrate in the brown rice doesn't get absorbed in the small intestine. It makes its way down to the large intestine and feeds your good gut bacteria, which means that it doesn't get absorbed into the bloodstream, so raise your blood glucose. So the majority of this, now that it's been cooked the day before, is a resistant starch. This is win-win, girls. Okay, now that we've got however much you want, just remember this is like however big your family is and however much rice you want to use, or quinoa, or any other grain really. And then you're just going to pop your roasted vegetables on the top. I just love the colours of all of these. Just looks fantastic. So easy to do. And then you are just going to put some balsamic vinegar, and there you have an amazing salad. And if you wanted to pop a can of maybe a 4-bean mix into that, you've got a complete meal. Easy as. All right, that is number one. Okay, number two are my pumpkin pancakes. Now, there was a time where, when I lived in Thailand for about 8 months, my daughter and I ate these probably every single day because there was an abundance of the most amazing pumpkin. We could get a hold of eggs, and we couldn't get any buckwheat flour, but we used to use, it was oats. I think all we could get was the quick oats, so we used those. But these are just delicious. So in your pan, you're just going to heat that. You're going to put a little bit of oil in there, whatever your preference is, a little bit of olive oil or coconut oil, because I try not to use Teflon because it's an endocrine disruptor, which you'll be hearing a lot more about that lately. And then once it's hot enough, you're just going to be putting spoonfuls of that. Now in here is 1 cup of pumpkin cooked, so you can either steam it or roast it. I remember I used to, when pumpkins go on special, I buy a whole one and roast the whole lot. And then I would portion out 1 cup portions into the freezer. So I could get that out the night before, mix that 1 cup of pumpkin up with 1 egg. Now depending on the pumpkin, because you know how some pumpkins can be dry and other pumpkin can be quite watery, that will depend on how much buckwheat flour you're going to be using. Now buckwheat isn't a gluten flour. Buckwheat is from the rhubarb family, so it's gluten-free, which I try to use. And mixing a little bit of that, a little bit of cinnamon for some sweetness. Wait until that's cooked on the side, flip it, and then you get this amazing pumpkin pancake. It is delicious. You have to give it a go. All right, that is number two. Now the next one I want to show you how to do is a pumpkin soup. People love my pumpkin soups. And I think there's a few little things that I always do in a pumpkin soup that makes it extra delicious. So as you know, I don't cook with oil, so I've gone back to cooking with just a little bit of moisture. So usually that is water. I say that because the next meal is not going to be water. So in the bottom of your saucepan, you're going to be putting your diced garlic, ginger. This is the secret ingredient. The fresh ginger just makes this amazing. So I've diced that. Then pop in your onion. Seriously, I haven't turned on the heat yet. Put in your pumpkin. You want to be putting in this one. We have got a little bit of curry powder. And some cumin. That's also another secret ingredient. Okay, then we're going to be putting half a can. Well, it kind of depends on how big this is. So if you're cooking for a big family, 6 to 8, you might well be using a whole can of that because you probably would have had quadruple the amount of ingredients there. I'm just cooking for me, so it's small. So I'm just going to be putting half a can of light coconut oil in there. Coconut milk. And then half a can of making that up to 400 mils. So the trick is that you don't really want too much water in there because you want it to be nice and thick. That's another one of the secrets of pumpkin soup. If it's really thick, it's just so delicious. And then I'm going to pop the lid on that. I'm going to pop that on the stove on low and just let it cook. And then once it's cooked, you get a stick blender, blend it up, or you can put it in the food processor, or if you're lucky enough to have a thermi. In fact, if you've got a thermi, you could do exactly all of this in your thermi and then just turn it on and it'll do all the cooking and mixing and blending for you all in one. So that is how I cook my pumpkin soup. It's amazing. Right. Okay. Now the last thing is a pumpkin and chickpea curry. So once again, in the saucepan, I'm going to put secret ingredients. Where's my teaspoon? Lost it. Starting off with, once again, lots of fresh garlic, lots of fresh ginger, and an onion. Now, if you do have a thermi, you could just put all of that in there just in chunks and blend it, and it will pulverise it all up, or even a food processor if you wanted to. Otherwise, pop that in there with a couple of chopped up tomatoes. Now, once again, the quantities depend on, I have got on my recipe, sort of approximate quantities, but it really doesn't matter. And the moisture from the tomatoes will give you enough moisture just to start cooking this up a little bit. And then you're going to be adding some curry powder again. Bit of a curry theme today. Some curry and a bit more of the cumin, or really whatever your favourite curry is. Now I would absolutely mix that up, just let it cook a little bit. And then what we're going to do is add a can of chickpeas. So I try and use the organic chickpeas, both Coles and Woolies, and most people sell them these days. I've rinsed it. So then you'll be putting the whole can of chickpeas in there, followed by half a can of the coconut milk. I use the light one, therefore it's less fat. And then you're just going to be putting that on the stove and just cooking that through, because the chickpeas are already cooked, so all it requires is to be cooked through. And then you're going to be adding some, some spinach right at the end and some coriander, and there you have it, a chickpea curry. Absolutely delicious. Thanks for watching. Share, give me some love if you found this useful, and I will see you next week. Oh my gosh, I was making a chickpea curry and I forgot to put the pumpkin in. So right at the very end, when you're putting in the coriander, you're just going to put the pumpkin in. Now, I've roasted this because pumpkin, when it's roasted, is extra delicious. But you really could just dice it and put the whole lot in there, and it really doesn't matter if you just want to set and forget. There you go. Now I have finished, and I'll see you next week.